Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Any other witnesses in support of either Ms. Randolph or Mr. Picker? I'm seeing none. Those in opposition? Seeing any opposition? Any folks in opposition? Seeing no opposition, those who are either A, neutral, or who have concerns. And Mr. Tony, I see you're coming for a second bite at the apple. So which one are you?
This is other.
This is
for President Picker.
Okay, so when you made your comments earlier, they were
They
for
were
Ms. Randolph.
strictly referring to Commissioner Randolph.
Okay,
I'm
Ms.
sorry
Randolph.
if I was not clear.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is those who have concerns.
We
or
have no
neutral.
position, but would a quick statement of concern on President Picker's confirmation. While we acknowledge that President Picker has taken important steps to restore confidence in the CPUC, holding PG&E accountable, exercising more transparency, reducing the intervenor compensation backlog, things like that, I want to focus on two issues of concern that actually were brought up today, briefly. One is that in the rate design decision, our concern was that, part of our concern was that the final decision was made without doing an analysis of the time of use impact on hot climates in the inland areas. We understand that that is something that President Picker has committed to do moving forward. We had expected with SB 1090 that it would have been done as part of that process. So that's the first. Quickly to the second is the whole issue of the CPUC making a decision, going through a whole process and deciding we are going to inspect the telephone infrastructure because of massive outages. And I think it's a problem that if parties who are unhappy with the decision, AT&T, Verizon, or if certain staff in the CPUC doesn't like it, I don't know that it makes a good precedent to simply delay a decision for so long, not implement it, and then new commissioners inherit it and say, well, we're not going to implement it because it's been so long, we're going to change it in the absence of any new hearings, new evidence, reopening the record. So that is our concern. My last point is we hope at turn that the confirmation process is the start of the accountability process, not the end, and that these questions that were asked today by all of you will continue to be asked when the President makes the annual report to the Senate and Assembly Utility Committees, and at any other time you feel is appropriate to ask the CPUC President or other commissioners to come to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holliver.
Yes. Good afternoon. Richard Holliver, Consumer Federation of California. And first I want to thank Senator Mitchell for addressing our letter and asking some of the questions that were contained in the letter. We don't have a position. We have concerns. And our concerns do primarily focus on the extent of corruption and perhaps criminal conduct that has been the way of doing business in the past at the PUC. And we want to recognize that neither President Picker or Commissioner Randolph were involved in any of those activities, but there is a need for very, very significant reform. We actually think the reforms need to largely come from the legislature, so we do support Senator Leno and Senator Hueso's bill, important steps in the right direction. But we do have concerns that we've heard, I would say, less than enthusiasm from the commissioners for the kinds of reforms that we believe are necessary. So I was very heartened to hear Commissioner Randolph today state that she found the email exchanges appalling. I think that is very encouraging to hear that kind of public statement. And we also acknowledge the very important report, the Stormrosser report, which really went through in great detail the degree to which the public hearings are kind of a charade because the decisions are made off the record between commissioners and the utilities. But there are some recent statements that are troubling. One, it was only on August 3rd that the San Diego Union Tribune reported that the Fair Political Practices Commission had opened an investigation regarding the disposition of $65,000 raised at a gala retirement party for President Peavy, raised under the direction of Mr. Picker, but no public disclosure of the recipient of those funds has occurred after UC Berkeley was too embarrassed to accept those funds. So openness, transparency really should be the watchword. And the other recent development, which was a July 27th statement by Assemblyman Rendon, Chair of the Assembly Utilities and Commerce Committee. I think that dispute is even ongoing today regarding turning over emails to the committee. After meeting with President Picker, he stated on July 27th, I continue to be disturbed by the Commission's lack of accountability to the legislature and to the public as a whole. More than 4 months after my initial request for documents related to San Onofre, it's clear to me that the legislature's oversight authority over the PUC is not being respected. So we just feel that those are matters of controversy that continue to cause us and many, I think, in the public to continue to have questions in our mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you much, and fair enough with regards to the concerns on the transparency issues. I want to say that I want to reiterate what I said when I opened up today's hearing, that I think both of you are people of education and of substance. You've all both held previously very high level positions in state government and have a tremendous amount of experience. And I do personally believe that both of you are very good people and of very good values. You've entered into an environment, a dynamic that is extremely challenging, very challenging, especially with the heightened media sensitivity and a whole variety of issues. San Bruno, PG&E, the question with San Onofre, what Mr. Hobler had just underscored with regards to the FPCC investigation, whether it was administrative oversight, things happen, I understand that, but again, it is so heightened. We all know it very well because we live in that very similar bubble. So you've entered a very challenging environment, to say the least, but you also have an incredible opportunity at the same time to restore the public's confidence in the PUC and deal with the right issues, energy efficiency, clean energy technologies, obviously the issue with regards to transportation, telecommunications, the issue of energy, IOUs, as well as the ratepayers. The PUC probably is one of the most important public commissions, not just in California, but in the entire country, given the fact how much energy we use, how much energy we have actually saved because of the policies that have derived from the legislative side, obviously, and overseen by the PUC. There's a major difference, obviously, between what is your utility rate and your utility bill, what folks actually open up and what they actually visualize and what they actually pay out of pocket. Two different things. Utility bills in California for individual ratepayers are actually less expensive, greatly, than the state of Texas. Texas individual ratepayers pay much more energy than we do in California. And that's because the progressive policies put forth. PUC plays a role, obviously. And that's why you have a major task in front of you. I do believe after today's hearing that you have the right stuff to make this happen. I can't emphasize and underscore enough that is absolutely critical that you engage with Senators Hill, Hueso, and Leno, since they have the pending legislation that deals with the reforms. I would highly suggest that you deal principal to principal as opposed to staff on this one right here. With that, I am prepared, unless there's any other further questions or commentaries from the members, I'm prepared to move these two nominations together. Can I get a nomination for Mr. Picker? We have a nomination for Mr. Picker by Senator Connie Label. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Canella?
Aye.
Canella, aye. Leyva?
Aye.
Leyva, aye. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mitchell, aye. Fuller?
Aye.
Fuller, aye. DeLeon?
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
Mr. Picker, congratulations. With that.
Thank you all very much.
Yeah. Let's move on to our second nominee for the PUC. That is Ms. Randolph. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Do you want a motion?
Oh, sorry, we got a motion. We have a motion that's been made by Ms. Leyva. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Canella? Leyva?
Aye.
Leyva, aye. Mitchell?
Aye.
Mitchell, aye. Fuller? DeLeon?
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
Nomination passes on a 3-0 vote. Ms. Randolph, congratulations as well. Okay. Okay, with that, I thank you very much, Mr. Picker and Ms. Randolph, for enduring this hearing, which is important. Please follow through in my strong suggestion. With that, have a wonderful day. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Okay, colleagues, we are down on the stretch right now. We have just one nomination before us that's required to appear. This is Mr. Robert Schneider, member of the Water Quality Control Board. This is the Central Valley region. I want to make sure I got that right. Is it Mr. Schneider? Mr. Schneider, thank you very much for your patience. Why don't we get through this? Folks, as you are departing, if you could be so kind enough to do so in a quiet fashion. Mr. Schneider, if there's anyone you'd like to introduce, please feel free to introduce them. If not, we can go to your statement. And sergeants, if you could be so kind enough to take the name tags off the table so we don't confuse.
I have no relatives here, thank you, but Pamela Creedon, our executive officer, is in the audience.
Now, who would that be? Okay.
Pamela Creedon, she's the executive officer.
Okay. And is that microphone working, or you may have to speak louder or closer or both?
It's on.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr.
That work?
Schneider.
Good.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you all. The issues we face at the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board are increasing in both number and complexity. We live in a rapidly changing world with climate change, drought, increasing population, a proliferation of new chemicals that threaten our environment. Within this changing environment, we are charged with protecting water quality. We face short-term issues such as wastewater spills and long-term difficult problems such as nitrate in groundwater and salts in the Central Valley. I'm proud of the work of the Regional Board in addressing these challenges, the expertise and dedication of our executive officer and staff, and strategic and cost-effective approaches that are taken to address these complex issues. I have a particular interest in water quality for our disadvantaged communities in our region, mercury and methylmercury pollution issues, and most recently in the environmental impacts of marijuana grows. Also of interest, of course, in difficult problems are CV salts, irrigated lands program, dairies, and the Delta issues. Thank you.
Mr. Schneider, why don't we go to questions and commentaries from the members? We'll go to my right, who geographically is the center of the Central Valley, Mr. Canella.
Thank you, Mr. Pro Tem. We had a nice discussion yesterday, and as I mentioned in the meeting, there were some concerns raised about your appointment. Now, unfortunately, I don't think they publicly issued those concerns, and that's unfortunate because in our brief discussion, you seem like somebody that's willing to work on those issues and try to come to a fair middle ground. And I think you've demonstrated that with some of your cities that have had some issues, and you've been, I think, very even-handed dealing with those cities. And I asked you if you dealt with the ag community the same way, and you mentioned that you did. And so my philosophy as a local official for a long time, and now in the state Senate, is that people won't always like, the decision, but if they feel like they got a fair hearing, they walk away maybe not as disgruntled as they could if they felt like that it was kind of stacked before they got there. And I think that you do that, and I very much appreciate that. Plus, as a consulting engineer, I work with boards all throughout the state, and the Central Valley region is, in my opinion, the best. I mean, I think you guys are very responsive. Your staff is great to work with. Again, we may not like the decisions, but I think that they try very hard to provide the information, and I think, that leadership comes from the board. And so I think and if they're doing a bad job, that lack of leadership comes from the board as well. So it's a two-edged sword. So I'm happy to support your nomination today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Canella. Ms. Mitchell?
No questions.
No questions or commentaries. Bless you. Ms. Leva? No questions or commentaries. Madam Vice Chair.
I just have one question and a comment, and that is, in reviewing the participants who sit on the Crop Safety Technical Advisory Group, it appears that the expert members are predominantly represented by government and academia. What efforts have you made or do you wish to make, or is it even important to you to reach out to industry experts?
We have, in our decision-making process and our rulemaking, we often set up stakeholder processes, and those are inclusive, and they take a long time, but when you get a good stakeholder process and you work through issues, the implementation of the solutions to those problems are most effective. And we have lots of technical experts that do come in to review the policies and make sure they're a scientific basis that a lot of these stakeholders put together. I think this has been particularly successful. It was really important in the Irrigated Lands Program. I worked when I was on the board before very closely with that program. And I think this approach, when people go to a workshop at a board, they can talk a lot freer. It's not like, oh, I'm at this meeting and I want to say what I want to say, but they're going to make an issue that's, or a decision today that's going to affect my quality of life and living. So if you can provide opportunities before that to work through issues, then when you get to that stage, I think they're much more effective. And that's our approach.
In checking around in people who've had contact with the board, again, I feel that I'm hearing a lot of not enough listening or wishing for more opportunities to work in the environment, the second environment that you just described. So I appreciate the really hard job that you have and the things that you've been doing, but I'm not sure today that I'm in a position of feeling completely comfortable with that outreach. So I probably won't be supporting your nomination today, but I do want to thank you very, very much for the work. It's a really hard job, and there's a lot of people to make happy, so.
And I'm always happy to come and meet with you at some other point in time if that's helpful. We do work hard to resolve our issues, and when people come to the board and express concerns, they're heard. And as Senator Cannella so commented, is when people come to our board, you know, they don't always get the answers they might like. But one of my personal key issues is when they leave, they feel like they were heard, and not just heard, they were actively listened to. And I think that's the approach that our board takes. So, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Any other questions or commentaries? And seeing none from the members, those in support of Mr. Schneider, please come on up. Those in support, Mr. Schneider, come on up. You can use that microphone right there, yes. Come on up.
Asha Kreiling on behalf of the Community Water Center in support of Mr. Schneider's reappointment.
Thank you. Other folks in support?
Bruce Hadelschelt, Director of Regulatory Affairs, Northern California Water Association, representing 8,500 agricultural growers and managed wetlands operators in the Sacramento Valley in support.
Thank you very much. Any other folks in support? I am seeing none. Those in opposition? Those in opposition? Come on up.
My name is Stephen Green. I am president of Save the American River Association and advocate for the American River for 54 years. I also handled legislation for former Senator Robert Presley when he was in the state government. Some months ago, I distributed to this committee a report titled An Evaluation of the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Board Compliance with Federal and State Regulations Governing Issue of NDPES Permits. It was written by a former staffer from the board.
Can you tell us what the, not the acronym, but the initials are for the, what you just mentioned?
National Pollution Discharge Elimination System.
Okay.
That's
Right.
the permit that are issued. It's written by a former staffer and civil engineer for the board who was the chief engineer at the state board in the enforcement division when he retired. He concluded in his executive summary that this board is issuing wastewater permits that have steadily reduced the protection provided to water quality and the critical beneficial uses of water in the Central Valley. He goes on with a number of damning statements about the operation of this board and the underground regulations that it is using. There are discharge violations in the Central Valley every day. And this board does almost nothing to correct those problems. They nudge the utilities, ask them to correct things, talk to them about it, send them a letter. That's about all they do. Last summer, 26 streams went dry in this state. Some rivers were reduced to a succession of ponds. This board would not let its enforcement staff go out and inspect as to whether there were illegal water diversions or whether there was toxic runoff from marijuana grows. We would like to see this board disfunded because it is not functioning as it should. And we cannot accept Mr. Schneider or any of his colleagues. All they do is go along with whatever the chair wants, and the chair is in the pocket of the polluters. Thank you.
Thank you much. Thank you much. Any other folks in opposition to this nomination? Okay, I'm seeing none. Colleagues, do we have a motion?
Move the nominee.
We move, okay. We have a motion made by Mr. Canella. Madam Speaker, please call the roll.
Senators Canella?
Aye.
Canella, aye. Leyva? Leyva, aye. Mitchell? Mitchell, aye. Fuller? No. Fuller, no. DeLeon?
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
Mr. Schneider, your nomination passes on a 4-1 vote. Congratulations and thank you for your patience. Congratulations. Okay, colleagues, we're going to work the agenda. We have file items number 2 through 7. Number 2 through 7. Number 4 has been scratched from our agenda today. We're going to bifurcate 2 through 7. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take number 2, but we're going to specifically the sub-items so folks can itemize it. We're going to take 2D, E, G, K, O, P, and Q. Okay? I'll do it one more time. 2D, E, G, K, O, P, and Q, plus file items 3 through 7. We have a motion made by Ms. Leyva. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Can we just, 1 second?
A little slow there. Okay, you got it? Okay, there we go. We have a motion made by Ms. Leyva. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Canella?
Aye.
Canella, aye. Leyva? Aye. Leyva, aye. Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye. Fuller? Aye. Fuller, aye. DeLeon?
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
Okay, motion passes on a 5-0 vote. Our last file item on this agenda is file item number 2, and that will be F, H, I, J, L, M, and N. That's Frank, Harry, Isidore, Jerry, Leon, Mary, and Nancy. Are we okay? Okay. Okay, we have a motion made by Ms. Leyva. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Canella?
No.
Canella, no. Leyva? Leyva, aye. Mitchell? Aye. Mitchell, aye. Fuller? No. Fuller, no. DeLeon?
Aye.
DeLeon, aye.
Okay, measure passes on a squeaky tight vote, 3-2. 3-2. So with that, we will adjourn the regular session of the Sen Rules Committee, and we'll go immediately into our Executive Committee.